Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Long Thing, where this week, of course, I'm joined by my good friend Bernard. Bernard, how have you been, man?
I've been good. It's been raining on our side here at the bottom of the world. So it's been a little cozy time, hey?
Yes, I also dig it. I think it's the most perfect movie watching weather, which is my
Yeah,
favorite hobby, so that works out well. We really have to think of an intro bit for this first part.
uh, maybe. Especially now that you, said it. Everybody's going to know our shape.
That's true. So we have to. We've made an unofficial promise now. I will think of something. We'll get a house band or something. Anyway, this week we don't have a lot of news, so we're just going to start right with what we're reading, what we're playing, what we're watching, because we're not going to cover this whole thing now. This is just from my side. I thought we would come back to this at the end, but it's making such big waves. I've been watching The Last of Us. You haven't seen any of The Last of Us yet?
I haven't seen any of the last of those yet. But is it good? Yeah, if you're watching it through, I guess it is.
It's very good. Have you heard anything about episode 3 yet? Because it's
No, I haven't.
really
No.
yes, yeah.
This is the first time I heard episode 3.
That's you really do live on your own little mountain there. You have a very curated feed, my friend, because it set the world ablaze. Episode 3 is quite hectic, but it also ties in nicely into our topic of the day. We'll get to that. But yeah. So I've been watching The Last of Us, and I've been playing old games. I've been playing Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, which I'm not going to waste anyone's time with explaining, because I don't think anybody cares about that anymore. But it's a fun game. I do find that if you let games age a little bit nowadays, you have a better experience with them. Like if you wait 6 months to a year and all the work's been completed, then you play it then for the first time. You have a far, because I read the reviews and everyone was like, oh, it's mediocre, it's mediocre, it's mediocre. And I started playing and I was like, this is the perfect extraction simulator. It's very action packed and it's like GTA, but a war simulator basically, or COVID ops simulator. Very fun, enjoying it. What have you been up to?
So I finally finished the final episodes of Rick and Morty. That was the first thing, and other than that, we watched this really strange anime, Records of Ragnarok. I think I've mentioned it in a previous what we're watching. The second season was now out for a bit, and what a zany show! Like really, what a zany show. So there's 2 fights. It's 10 episodes, I think. Yeah, I think it's 10 episodes, but there's only 2 fights in the season. The first fight is between Hercules and Jack the Ripper. And the second fight was between Tamemo. Damn, I'm going to butcher that, but the greatest sumo wrestler in history, and Shiva. So, it's a pretty zany time.
That's a good. When you first said it's a wacky anime, like, because I don't know much about anime, my first thought was, isn't that one of them? Yeah, that sounds whack, man. That sounds like they're pushing some envelopes. Jack the Ripper is a underused character. Now I know it's terrible and he really existed and all of that, but like just the pure mystery surrounding that guy, he can honestly be used a lot more. Have you ever seen Gotham by Gaslight?
Haven't, but I've picked up on it. I know.
Yeah, you know what it is.
Yeah, it's actually a great idea. Does a real interesting thing with Jack the Ripper, because it's an anime, so everybody has like a little superpower. The greatest example is Adam, being made in the image of God, has the ability to copy God's moves, which is fake as fuck.
Yo, that's some pure anime storytelling right there.
Yeah. But Jack the Ripper's ability is to see people's emotion, and he had like a prostitute mother who didn't really love him but loved his father, and he kind of represented that. And he promised Jack's mom that he'll come back. And then after 13 years, he got married, and she got the news, and she didn't love the kid anymore. But he could see her love as like this glowing light. And then when that day came, she turned this dark purple. You know that purple that show that in anime.
Sky blue purple. I am aware.
Yes, exactly. She said that color, and he's like, No, that's not a good color for you to be. That's the color that all my bullies is. And then he kills his mother. And then he's flipping crazy. But he like represents malice in the fight. And then Hercules' backstory, his ascension wasn't like because he's half like demigod or whatever. It's not that at all. He started just immortal, and then he fought. What he did was fight bullies. That's what he did. And then one day the gods decided that the city of Thebes must be destroyed, and Ares himself goes down to do this, and Hercules decides to fight the god of war, mano a mano. He does drink a special juice that gives him like Super Saiyan, but they call it ambrosia because it's Greek myth now, and it's the blood of Zeus. So he does drink that, and then he gets so powerful, and then he fights Ares, and Ares is like, "I respect this opponent," kind of.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's always a bad end to a fight.
yeah. So then it's Hercules being this like noble character, and then Jack the Ripper being this malicious character. But Hercules fights on the side of the gods, so if he wins, it's bad for humanity. And Jack the Ripper fights on the side of humanity, so if he wins, it's good for humanity. So it did create like a little like
a moral debate.
Yeah,
that's always fun. Yeah, that sounds. I've seen it. It's on Netflix, right?
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Yeah. I should maybe. Would you recommend it?
It's just fighting. If that sounds like a good time to you, how could you say epic fist fights of history? Because that's kind of what it is.
That does sound good to me. Yeah, we'll maybe come back to it. Let me give it a go. Well, the next episode. Interesting. You've been reading anything? You're playing anything at the
moment? I've been playing a lot of Minecraft. I've started a little cottage core map, so I can't kill animals and I can't use pistons, so I have to like actually manually farm grain and eat bread and have cute little like villages and cute little houses. That's what's going on there. Nothing trendy at all. It's just that
I'm not sticking to the trends at the moment. I thought about getting the Dead Space remake, but I played the crap out of Dead Space back in the day. And I know it's different and it's a little bit and some of the mechanics are updated and blah blah blah. But it's just like I've seen that story too many times. I don't know. Maybe they changed it because with the Final Fantasy VII remake, they changed the ending. So maybe they do the same thing. Yeah, what's her face? That chick doesn't die. That guy, I forget their names.
I don't think I've ever known their names. I know her as that chick that.
Yeah, me too. I know as that, and everyone cared. I never played Final Fantasy as a kid, so I guess we don't have that nostalgia for it. I've been trying to read Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Heralded as one of the finest American novels of all time, but it's some hectic reading. It's very hectic, and I've been trying to work because I've read a lot of classics over the past couple of months. So I've read like Homer's Odyssey and the Iliad back to back, and I've been sticking to this like classical literature, and it's draining, man. It's quite hectic. Those guys were onto some hardcore themes and thoughts. That's definitely true, but yes, I miss fantasy, man. I miss reading like Skullduggery Pleasance and the Percy Jackson books. Lighthearted fun things.
That's actually quite interesting because if I don't know Catch-22, you can tell me what it's about before I.
Yeah, sure. So Catch-22 is like I'm not entirely sure. I watched the movie way back, but I was too young to understand. So I have to read the book. As far as I understand it, what I've read on the back and the little bit I've read, the Catch-22 and Catch-22 is this guy. So it's Second World War. He's trying to get out of the war by claiming he is not medically fit. And to be medically fit means you are then able to kill people, and that to him seems like a moral conundrum because how can you understand? So I think that's what it's about. We'll get back to it once I've done. But it's supposed to be very funny and sad, but that's like the moral debate of it is if we're at our healthiest, we're told we can kill, but if you're not healthy, you can't kill. But not killing seems healthier than killing, which that's the debacle, if you will.
That's the Catch-22.
Yes, that's the Catch-22. I think, like I said, I'll come back to this if I'm wrong.
Okay.
If I am wrong, just leave a comment below. Tell me. you are not right. I'll be sure to retract it, I guess. But yeah, it's hectic reading, so I'm thinking of maybe putting it on hold and reading something light. I've never read the last Aragon book, so maybe I'll do that.
Oh, I have the last one is.
I think it's Inheritance.
Oh,
Or John, I think
I-
I'll check that.
yeah, I don't. I can't remember if I actually read past the first one, which is probably not a good sign. I remember the first one clearly, but the second one, I think I kind of started and it just fell off my must-read list.
Yes, but it's actually a little bit the same for me because I read the first one and thought it was okay. Like it's very clearly written by because he was like 15 when he wrote that book. I can like almost sense the okay, it's not as practiced or as polished. It's also self-published, so it's like there was no editor and anything like that. Second one obviously gets a huge influx of that. You can almost feel it. But I left it for a long time. Then I went back and begrudgingly got through this. I don't even remember what happens, to be honest with you. To the second and third one, and then I just never went back to the fourth. But I find the same thing with Lord of the Rings because I watched the movies before I read the books and how it's difficult for me to read the books, even though I could get why they're amazing. And I've read like enough of them, but I've never finished the series. To understand why like it's so special. Like I get it, but I've just dealt those songs. As soon as I get to the first song, I'm like, and then I'm lost.
And that's like my favorite part. So.
Really? Poetry.
Yeah, I've actually finished it, but I also only started reading it after seeing the movies. That's just that's just how the fates like wove it. It's nothing you can do about it. And my main thing about it is it's just so heavy, and it's like he is definitely more concerned about setting than he is about plot or character development or anything like that. The things we like value in fantasy now, is the things that he kind of like. I'm not saying it's horrible and actually like serves the purpose he wanted it to serve, but it's rough.
It is a lot, and I do get what you're saying. You definitely, and I feel like because Peter Jackson did such a great job, and he really did. He took those definitions and explanations, and he made it something that looks like that. So when you've seen it and then have to read the definitions of it, it's not as exciting. I think that's maybe the main issue. I think you're going it.
And that's and I'm gonna stick. Yeah, there's a lot of superfluous stuff in the books that Peter Jackson like trimmed the fat to tell a better story. You could almost say that Peter Jackson is the father of modern fantasy, like re-legitimized the fantasy genre for our 2000s kids.
Oh, that's very true. Those movies won Oscars, bro. They were like seen as proper films in a proper art form. It's definitely true.
Yeah.
Fantasy in itself, though, is still pretty niche because apart from Lord of the Rings, fantasy movies usually don't do very well. It'll be very interesting to see what Dungeons and Dragons, how it does this year, because I'm willing to bet it's gonna underwhelm. Not the movie itself, I'm sure it'll be a pockets of fun, but I don't think it's gonna have the box office returns they're hoping for. Because it feels like they're trying to Dungeons and Dragons is obviously you're not making a Dungeons and Dragons movie with the idea of just making one. Like, let's be honest. That's not the plan yet. So they're definitely trying to set this up as a counter to the DCU or MCU. And I just don't think they're going to get what they're looking for.
Well, they have the concept. Like, there's a lot of beloved characters already, although it does look like they're going with EU characters. If they went the way of Star Wars, they would have a buttload of IP to work with. Like, multiverses. It's a buttload of IP. A thing I would actually like to see put to screen is the Eberron world. The guy who created the world actually tried to answer the question of how would culture and society and our world look if magic was common. So it's like this magic tech world. It's dope. I love the shit out of it.
That's cool. I also like concepts like that. I like steampunk for the exact same reason. Like, what if everything was magical, but just like normal? Also, where Netflix fails a bit. Did you ever see Bright? Is it like that?
No.
Yeah, don't watch it. It's not worth it. It's really not.
No, it didn't look like.
It's such a wasted opportunity, though. because it's pretty cool. It's like modern day, and at one stage there's a very cool shot, just like a single frame in the movie where it's like a normal night skyline of a city, and then the road, and then you see a dragon flying past it. And I thought that right there on its own could be it. But
Oh, it could. The 80s would do such a good job.
oh, the 80s!
The special effects would be terrible.
But it would be a perfect setting for it. It's all metal, and you have clan rock and those outfits, the backdrop, and these actual elves, fairies, and dragons.
And your protagonist can be a kid on a bike. Like,
Definitely bike / skate.
yeah, like that. It could just find this like thing, 80s style hijinks about him having a dragon. That's filled with joy. Like,
Do it like the never ending story, just less sad.
that movie is actually sad. It's very meaty, but it's also very sad.
Today, unfortunately, the Black Dragon special effects does not hold up, which makes for some ridiculous looking shots, especially when he's trying to be all serious and sad and shit. And he looks like such a puppet.
Yeah. And it's on the one hand, it's like real endearing, but yeah, you can't be serious because he's adorable.
It's very adorable. Anyway, I have some corporation news for you. So in news, people trying to figure out the next big thing, Amazon Prime has announced earlier this week at the time of recording that they are going to do an interconnected media Tomb Raider thing. So what that means is a game, a movie, and a TV show, but with the same character running coherently through all the forms. Now, interestingly enough, just again yesterday at the time of recording, did you see the James Gunn DC announcement?
No. You can't ask me news things.
Well, so this is
James Gunn.
this is like brand spanking news. Just him talking to a camera, and he basically goes through the next like phase and what his plan is. Like they've set it out now, and it's definitely interesting. And they've chosen some interesting names, but they're gonna go the same route. So they're gonna do the same characters in different platforms. So you'll have like an animated Superman movie, and that animated Superman movie will be the same live action Superman movie. It'll all fit into the same overarching story. And I, for one, feel that this is not the way to go. Like, because you're alienating certain crowds here. Not everybody plays games, and not everybody that watches movies watches TV shows, and vice versa. And I think you're going to lose. Like, obviously, I think they're only seeing dollars and cents here, that if they do this across all, then they have different markets that they can profit from, which is definitely, yeah, that makes sense. But it also feels like it's all they're thinking about, and they're not necessarily thinking, because this has been tried before. They have done events in the past, like the CW has done this, if I'm not mistaken, Battlestar Galactica, I think, or was a sci-fi show akin to it. That also, so it was an MMORPG game, and then there was a coherent running TV show, and everything the players did in the MMO would affect the TV show. But obviously, like, you can't have, like, no one was on top of it all the time, so it fell apart very quickly. What do you think about this? Do you think this can work? Is this something that you would want to partake in? Because I love Tomb Raider. I know you love Tomb
I loved it.
Raider, especially the Square Enix reboots. But do you feel like following Laura?
I'm medium on the Square Enix reboots. Let me get you there.
Oh,
The first one, the 2012 one, top notch. I love that one a lot. I started playing the second one and I was not interested in finishing it. Oh my word. I think mainly because they put things to the side that I want front and center. Like, it's the part I came for, is things that you've made an optional quest. And now I have to do stuff I don't care about for the main quest, and that like irks me. But anyway, that's to the side. The question of, can you, a game, a TV series, and a movie, like, create a cross-platform event like that? Like, how would you do that? How would you like do that without alienating your people? Do you just make each one very standalone-y kind of vibe? Because if you have like major plot beats in the game, then people who, you know, watch series but don't play games have to like get like informed in that. Do you do flashbacks? Do you do a lot of flashbacks to the game? Is that what you're gonna do?
if you're doing a lot of flashbacks as is, then why do the game at all? I hear what you're saying. Logistically speaking, this is going to be a
Yeah, it's going to be rough. Like, how do you write that?
do you write it, especially if you're promising from the get-go that it's going to be a coherent, overarching narrative and all this fits into it. Don't think it's the best idea. Honestly, don't, because it's very true. Who's gonna play that game? And is it gonna be a 60-hour modern AAA title? Because then I definitely fucking don't want it. Because I also get what you're saying with the Tomb Raider games. Yeah, they're great and they're very pretty, and they definitely gave us a reimagined modern day Lara Croft, which I think we all can agree. Yeah, that's what we want. But when you say they push things to the side, because my favorite parts of those games is the tombs themselves, like sorting out the puzzles and going into the tombs, but they're all the optional quests. The main story is just going through the set pieces, which are cool. I mean, they look cool. If you play only the campaign, and it is a pretty thrilling ride. But also, I think the tombs of it all is what makes Tomb Raider Tomb Raider. Standalone adventures, though, this is definitely the IP for it. You can definitely do it with Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
But then you're never gonna have you can't have character development anywhere if you're gonna do that. Because as soon as you introduce character development, you're gonna have to do it everywhere. And those things will have ripple effects through all the mediums. I don't think this is gonna be what they want it to be. But now James Gunn and DCU, that's like a big deal. They have like proper budgets behind them and they're promising the same thing. And I also think blending live action and animation is like you can have both, but keep the universes separate.
And that's like one of their strengths, right?
Yes.
The animated like features. They're doing the DC really well in the animated features. It's somehow more dark than the live action ones, which is, blows my mind. Especially because it's made for kids. I'm putting air quotes. You can't see me putting it around it.
Yeah, you would just say something.
You would think it would be the more camp side of things, but really not. It's sometimes real dark.
It's true. No, they are. That Constantine one where he teams up with the Justice League, that's hectic, man. The violence in that is quite hectic. Also, the Constantine solo DC animated movie is also, it's hardcore, bro. That's a pretty hardcore theme. But the Batman ones as well, like Damian Wayne is a 12-year-old murderer, according to this. That's insane, bro. That's hard. But they are quite dark. So, final word. What do you think? Do you think Amazon might be wasting their money and time here? Do you think this will kill Tomb Raider for a bit?
You can't kill Tomb Raider. Do you know how many times people were like, Tomb Raider is dead? It seems it's persistent as fuck, and we can't get rid of it. If somebody fucks it up enough that they lose a lot of money on it, somebody else will buy it for cheap and try to make more money out of Lara Croft. It's like Batman. It's not going to fade anytime soon. On the one hand, there's too much profit to be made, and the other hand, there's too much story still to tell. So I think we're gonna be seeing these. It's our modern culture. It's our modern mythology. These characters, and I don't think it's gonna like fade soon. Maybe in like 30 years.
Yeah, I hear you. Eventually, maybe, but Tomb Raider in and of itself is almost. I mean, it's from the PlayStation 1. It's pretty old already. I hear what you're saying. It's very integrated into our pop culture, definitely. Also, the movies helped a lot. Like those Angelina Jolie movies might not be great, but they kind of are at the same time. I watched it the other day, and they're very fun, man. They're definitely of a different time. A time when you didn't have to think about every frame of film. You didn't have to. There was no underlying moral message. There was a MacGuffin, and there was a villain, and that's about all you needed.
Oh, that's neat. Because the third ingredient for the Tomb Raider series is tasteful side.
Very tasteful.
Yeah. She was an over-sexualized character back in the day. You could see it in the advertising, you could see it in magazines, in the game itself as well. And I think that did take a lot away from her on the one hand, as a character. That's what I loved about the 2012, because they just made her a person. She's not a sex icon or anything. She's the actual character. And that's why I like that part of the reboot I really did enjoy, that she gave They gave her character. They gave her things to care about. I still can't remember her friends' names. It seems that's not that important. But we were also like developing this mythology as we go. We all kind of have this idea that her and her father's relationship is strained. She is following in his footsteps and kind of dealing with the fact that she didn't believe what he believed. Like that is actually a theme that is coming up more and more, but it wasn't part of like the original character, like the 1996, I think it came out, Tomb Raider 1. She had like a little biography in the beginning of the like booklet that you got with the game that explained like her situation. A real stable environment. She went to university. She's an archaeologist now. She inherited the estate, and that's why she can do this. And she does it as a hobby. It's fun. She's a rich bitch. She can do what she wants. But
including all the movies.
Yes, but they changed that up as they went along. So in the movies, for instance, they like really highlighted it, and I think that like kind of stuck because that is a theme in the Crystal Dynamics, Tomb Raider Legends, Anniversary, and Underworld. That's like a major theme is her relationship with her parents, following in the footsteps of her father and discovering like this magical world and trying to get her mother back. There was a lot of focus on the mother as well on those reboots. And then when we rebooted again, her father came back up as a major theme. Like he was busy with something, and then she is like following this breadcrumb trail behind it. And as the iterations go, we've added more to like this mythology of it. So she's developing as a character as we go along. You kind of, the next time it comes up, we kind of expect that this will be part of her story, that her father did archaeology as well. He got into like some serious magical stuff, and she's following in the footsteps. This is how characters develop.
It's true. I do agree with you 100%. She might be pretty old as a character, but her modern day interpretation is quite new, and it hasn't been nailed yet. And this might be an opportunity to do that. It could be. I didn't like that last movie based on the Square Enix at all. I think the girl, Blazer, was cast perfectly, and she did a fine job. And the set pieces were all right. It's just something about that movie I didn't like. I think they rammed off because in the first Square Enix reboot, it's very her first kill like is very traumatic, and it's really like he's a real person. She gets hardened over time because that's also the other thing. She was just a gun toting femme fatale. So yeah, maybe there's opportunity. I don't know. But in the same vein, here's the other side of the spectrum, and this is definitely a result of the MCU, the success. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is back, and they've announced 2 reboots. So 2 movies, different narratives done by different people. Seth Rogen will helm an animated one, and then there will be a live action one, but both will be handled as top tier AAA releases. Interesting move to go with 2 reboots. Do you think it's like a backup plan?
What do you mean by backup?
If one fails, then the other one can still maybe make it, or maybe it's to cover cost. Because Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is also, like, I will say this about those movies that Michael made. What's his name? Michael Bay made. They're not great, and they're a little bit Transformery, too shiny. But the actual Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle models is about how spot on you can make a live action version. I mean, they do look cool. The CGI might be a little off, but don't you agree? Did you ever see that?
Okay, so I haven't seen the movies. I can't say that I'm much of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan. Like, I'm not angry that they exist. I'm gathered now, but I don't sit in it for too much because I'm not really sure why. I just kind of cringe.
I get that. It's very nostalgia based.
No, I'm pretty sure I do a lot of cringy stuff too. The problem is, how do you make a live action turtle person?
Yeah,
without and having them be taken seriously instead of it's like hilarious. Like if you took Baymax from Big Hero 6, like that personality, and you made a ridiculous turtle person, that would be fine. We would be fine with that, But how do you make a turtle person look cool so you could sell toys? That's
It's difficult. And it gets difficult with the surrounding things because all of them are animals. So you have to do a rat as well, which is hard, right? Rats. How do you make an appealing looking rat? Anyway. And then, of course, you have to do the rhino and the other two rhinos as well.
I feel like it was made for animated. Just make something animated, and even like 3D CGI. Like take your budget and make a stylish movie. Something like Kung Fu Panda in that vein. Make it animated, but don't like be patronizing or something about it. Put the proper work in it. Don't market it to kids or whatever. Make a good story that could like appeal to anyone.
Because ever since Pixar, animation is definitely not seen as a kids only thing. Definitely not. Pixar's, we have Pixar to thank. I think, for instance, I'm a 30-year-old man. I love animations. I'll watch an animation any day.
I do love my animations. And you know me, sometimes more than my live actions. And you really don't need to make a live action adaptation from an animated movie. It's not necessary. It's not automatically better because it's live action. It's no. Leave it animated. Like freshen it up. Use modern computer technology and like freshen up the animation if you really wanted to. But if your story is in animation, like there's certain things that like work in it, and I want it there. That doesn't necessarily work for me when it's live action. Yeah, but this is a rabbit hole, man. I could talk about that.
Yeah, we'll definitely get back to animation at some point. I know you and I both have a lot to say about it. Just the last piece of news I wanted to share with you, just because I know you'd be excited to hear this. So we've started on the road to the Oscars for this year. First up was the BAFTA nominations, and Everything Everywhere All at Once got third place. So that's awesome. Well, it was tied with another movie, but All Quiet on the Western Front leads the back as we speak. But it's on its road to maybe winning an Oscar of some sort. I think it deserves the Oscar for screenwriting at the very least.
Screenwriting, maybe cinematography, like maybe special effects, maybe not special effects, maybe acting. I would give it all the awards. Although All Quiet on the Western Front, that's classic. I don't know much about the adaptation, but if he did a proper job of that, I could see why it's leading the pack.
Yeah, and I know it's very cool. It's definitely gonna win. Definitely. I've seen some of it. It's very dark. It's very heavy. It's very sad. It's all the things.
Yeah, one argue it's the only anti-war film that exists in mass media.
That could be true. I should actually go back and finish it. The First World War is, yes, what an example of human atrocity. Oh,
it's why it's called the seminal tragedy.
Anyway, so we talked a lot about adaptations, coming up adaptations. So I wanted to ask you, actually, in the time we live in, because again, The Last of Us is making the rounds now and it's doing very well and everyone's loving it. But there are things that they've changed, like episode 3. I'm not going to spoil it for you, anybody listening. But what happens in episode 3, so the core idea of it does come from the game, except in the game it was a little bit more hidden. It wasn't so forefront. It was in an Easter egg, and the actual resolution to the story is far harsher in the game. So they changed all of that to this new narrative, and no one's complaining. And then I think back to what adaptation was generally hated. Let's say The Rings of Power for one. Green Lantern, for instance. Although it was just a movie of its time, do you think our rules for adaptation are fair? And do you think we should lay down some right now?
Okay. So I do think our rules for adaptation is fair. We do have unwritten rules of what we expect when you say you're making a story that we especially like already. If you're gonna do that, then there are some rules some hoops you have to jump through. For everything in this world, there is a cost to be paid, and the toll for this one is these principles. You're going to make an adaptation, you want it to be successful, you want it to resonate with all-time fans and new people. you have to like follow a certain set of rules. Some people understand this idea, and some people don't.
So what would you say is important? All right, we're not including anything. All right, so let's say for instance, because I think it's important, it will depend on the IP. Because again, Dungeons and Dragons, all you can really take from Dungeons and Dragons is the name and some of the settings. You can maybe take an arc, but it will still be like you can exchange characters. You have far more freedom with something like that. Do you think it's fair to compare an adaptation like that to A Last of Us, for instance, which has because The Last of Us, honestly, man, a couple of months ago, maybe even a year ago, if you would ask, I would have said an adaptation for The Last of Us is an impossible task unless you do it. It's just you're gonna take your like unless you do it like shot for shot, which you really can't do because it's like 60 or 30 hours of narrative and dialogue. And although you can fit it into a TV show, there are just things that you cannot take from the original and do exactly, especially because adaptations usually, you're crossing a media platform here. So you're going from the book or you're going from animation generally to live action. There are just things that will never translate. Because the clickers are amazing in The Last of Us. They're very video gaming. They're not like, you know what I mean? They're still like they
Yeah, because they have a specific set of rules that you have to puzzle around
exactly.
in little interactive gameplay pieces. And this is part of the problem of adapting interactive media to like what I would call submissive media, where you're just like taking it in, or receptive media, because your agency is taken away. So your experience of the story is already like different because you have no control. And that's like one of my main things. But you're vouching for it, right? You're like saying people should go watch this if they like The Last of Us. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, most definitely. But I'm very like don't get me wrong. I feel a lot of adaptations get blocked and they don't deserve it because an adaptation by definition is the core ideas of that story or narrative or whatever, but seen through a different perspective. And you're always gonna have directors and writers and producers and showrunners who would like to add their own flair or what they think is better to the show. And I don't think people deserve necessarily to be crucified. And again, I think we're unfair about this because in The Last of Us, so in this show, they've changed this massive. It doesn't change the overall narrative or anything like that, but it is a huge part of the game. Like it's the entire first act that Bill and Frank are in. But like I'm over exaggerating a little bit now, but you understand what I'm saying? Like they changed a lot. And if people didn't like episode 1, they would not be as forgiving as they are now. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I haven't seen The Last of Us, but now all this juice and sauce is like making me very curious.
You
But I
should.
also
You should
play
definitely.
games. I'm gonna watch the series before I play the game. So I wouldn't even know what you're experiencing. But I do. Excuse me. I do hear you. Hey, why do we crucify some people when they make adaptations and they change things, and why are we okay with other people changing things? And we give them awards for it.
So
I break the rules and I'm the bad guy. You break the rules and you're the hero. Doesn't seem fair to me.
that's where we are. So you say, but according to you, there are core things that you have to, and I think you're right in this. So maybe that's where it's when you say core things like, all right, apart from like character names, because I feel like you can, if you made Joel a black woman and made Ellie a small white boy, you can still do The Last of Us because it's the narrative that matters here is the bond that they grow over the journey, which is just coincidentally across this horrible place filled with horrible things and horrible people. But The Last of Us is first and foremost about their bond that they form over this journey. So you can make that between anybody. It can be anybody. So that's what I would say. As long as you get that right, the core moral, I guess. But yeah, I say that, and then I think that's not gonna work.
Okay. I have some stuff to say about this. The core moral is actually an important thing, and I think this is where something like Rings of Power and something like M. Night Shyamalan's Last Airbender slips up is because they don't understand the message that this show is trying to convey, and they don't understand the lesson that people have taken from this show. They're teaching a different lesson. And I'm still not saying that you can't get away with it. I'm sure there is an example for it, but for everything you change, there's like this scale that tips to one side or the other side. When it comes, especially to the lessons people have taken from this story, because if you change that, you change how they emotionally got invested into it in the first place. You're going to move that over. And then if you are surprised that people have a different emotional reaction or a different emotional investment, I would say, well, what did you expect changing the main emotional investment? You know, one thing leads to the other in these situations. It's pretty interesting that you say that you could do Last of Us with any two characters, because as long as it has like the core message at its heart, which is a complicated message already. Like,
No, undoubtedly. But that's what separates good storytelling from bad storytelling.
Yeah.
Complexity of the conflict. But yeah, you can literally do The Last of Us with any people from any, it wouldn't really matter. It's just because the first iteration was this, now this is what we keep getting. Which I think is also a thing, because I think it would have been crucified if they changed it. It would have been called woke or whatever.
Oh, I would definitely have had more trouble. So I've got like these general principles. Would you like to hear my general principles for adaptions?
I love me in this.
Okay, so the overarching like idea is that telling stories in general, be they new stories or adaptions, is more alchemy than it is science. It is more magic than it is science. You're dealing with people's emotions. You're dealing with expecting people's emotions, stuff like that. You know, it's stuff where science doesn't like properly like touch. You know, you have to have experienced certain emotions to properly know how to invoke it and how it feels and what do you want people to feel in certain things, you know, or how you feel about certain things. So that's the first principle. It's an alchemy. It's not a science. It's a gut feeling. It is being a daring creator, and trusting yourself, and that's all you can ask. So that in place, I have 3 principles though that you could, in my opinion, follow when you're adapting a work from whatever medium to whatever medium. I've got maybe 4 rules. We'll see how I feel by the end. So the first principle I would say is be respectful of the work. I might even go so far as to say you could only adapt a story if you are a fan of that story already. That if you are someone that hasn't heard this story, or you don't know anything about this story, or when you watch the story, you're lukewarm about it, your result is going to be lukewarm.
So what you're saying is you have to know how to pronounce "ang" before you try and write the script.
Oh, I just got it. Yes, you need to know. They literally say it. Okay, they literally say it. You can't get it wrong. He said it in an interview where just before the first movie came out, he didn't watch the 3rd season. I don't know how you could make the 1st season and already like build Zuko's character if you didn't watch the 3rd season. Like, you don't understand what Avatar's about in the 1st season, you know? It's only by the end where you like all the messages start making sense, you know? And then what happens is, because you didn't watch till the end and actually waited for the what did we learn today, kids? Like, moral lesson, your core moral has moved. And, you know, this kind of leads me to my second thing. You will have to satisfy some expectations. This is the second principle. If you could think about it as people will come to your movie with a set of expectations, like a big old pile of it. For every expectation that you don't meet, like this pile gets like less and less and less and less. And some things are small and some things are big, and some things will be in everybody's pile and some things will not be in everybody's pile. Make sure you get the big things that are in everybody's pile. The thing that your fans will say is the forefront of this story is what you have to have first. You have to build these pillars. What people expect has to come first. An example.
An example would be not 5 guys doing 15 moves to move one stupid small rock. But rather one guy doing one move to throw a ball.
Yeah, I expect cool bending. This is first and foremost. It is at the start of the show. I expect cool bending. Make it cool. Right. I expect characters that have chemistry with each other. And have like layers to them and learn important lessons. This is important to avatars, that they learn and they grow and they struggle with things. I expect ethnically diverse cast without having to call it an ethnically diverse cast, because it didn't make a big deal about it. I know like the voice actors isn't like that diverse, but they didn't try to tell the word is whitewashed. I really didn't want to use the word whitewash. Can I use a Eurocentric whitewash? I don't know. I don't know what anyone what. But anyway, it's not.
But I understand what you mean. Just have it diverse, man. We all live in the real world. We all interact with each other on a daily basis as is. It is handled with like kid gloves inclusivity, and I don't understand why. Just make it so. You don't have to have a lantern hanging off it. Just make it so. And then just be. We all live amongst each other anyway. It's almost like the going, but we added it, people will be freaked out. Well, we won't be. We know what each other look like. That's not how you say that, but you know what I mean.
As I said, my original point was have some expectations, and if we expect ethnically diverse cast, make it an ethnically diverse cast. Okay, and if it's ang, it's not ong. Okay, even if it is an accurate pronunciation in the original Sanskrit, right, or whatever language it does come from, sacrificing what the audience expect for this authenticity, right, is a strange move to make. Okay, that's why I say you have to satisfy some expectations. And the reason we have to satisfy some expectations is because people have already put it in their pile of why they like this show. If you leave it out, it doesn't feel right to them. And it's going to go about feeling, because it's alchemy. This storytelling isn't about logic and science and numbers and calculations. It is about people's feelings and the lessons they learn and how we convey those feelings and those lessons. It's wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. It's all it's going to be. And if you have this truth that it's going to be wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff, then you have to consider people's emotional reaction. And not satisfying some expectations will like leave gaps in these reactions. My favorite example of this is Mark Rosewater talking about all Magic the Gathering set, Champions of Kamigawa, that did a Japanese theme, and they did a lot of research on Japanese things. And they did include the things you would expect, like samurais and ninjas and spirits and those things, but they did also include a bunch of stuff that was accurate Japanese. And he said it did not resonate, especially the things that they did on a large scale. Like they made a big thing about something that people didn't expect. That's the other thing is be careful with the things people don't expect. Adding things people don't expect and making it a big deal. Also, like, it's a gamble. I'm not saying no, don't do it. Just be mindful about it when you do it.
And it's two sides of the same coin. Add things, but be careful. That's good advice.
Yeah, be careful. Be a fan in the first place. That's the thing. Be a fan and then satisfy your expectations, what people will expect. And then, yeah, don't like add things that people don't make a big deal about things people wouldn't expect. Maybe you could get away with like one or two, because once again, I don't say like don't do this, but the more things you change of your pile of expectations and where it doesn't match with each individual and the group's like pile of expectation, like that builds up and it tips the scale even more and more. And that's just something I have to say for that. For my next point would be to build a bridge. Build a bridge from the everyday world into your story. This is for people who aren't fans, who aren't into it. You're gonna have to explain certain things. You can't assume your audience will already know about this. And this is where it does get dicey, because this looks like you're patronizing to your already fans because they already know this while you're explaining it. But you have to take the time to consider your new fans as well. So when new people come into a thing, you have to build your bridge from their point of reference, the expectations they will have without knowing your piece of IP. So, for instance, if you're selling The Last Airbender, God's Help Us All, the Shyamalan Last Airbender, and you're getting an everyman from the street, you have to pitch certain things to him, right, without him knowing about what's going on. So you're going to explain the elements to him. You're going to explain the martial arts to him, things he knows already. And then maybe you're going to explain the conflict, something he can like understand properly. You're not going to explain like the moral quandaries about these characters because he doesn't care about them yet. He has to care about them first. And you're not going to explain like the specialities of like bloodbending or whatever, because what you start with is like the 4 elements, and your audience will build their own bridge into bloodbending when they start thinking about waterbending. You can like predict bloodbending from waterbending, and then you show them bloodbending, and it blows their fucking minds. But because you only taught them about waterbending, it has that effect. You did put in something that wasn't necessarily what everyone would expect, but some people could have. And it's something that like, takes it like one step at a time. So be slow with your new viewers as well. But I do think the first 2 might be the ones we are struggling with. Be a fan of the thing you're adapting is the first thing you can do. Why are you telling this story if you do not care about it? How can you like claim you know what is best for the story if you do not know, if you do not care about it? That's like the first thing. And then there are some expectations you're gonna have to meet. And if there's things that people didn't expect, that's a tough one, because that's what made The Last Jedi so weird. It's because they just subverted every expectation, and I wouldn't say it invalidates The Last Jedi or anything, but it does make it weird and it does make us angry. But then you go to Rise of Skywalker and the answer is so boring. On the other hand, they didn't challenge any expectation at all, really.
They didn't try anything new. Yeah, they try to stick with what they knew already. That's nostalgia going too far. I think you have a very good blend of that makes a lot of sense to me. Be a fan without having the need to write your own fan fiction, I would say, is very accurate as well. Because that's what happens. They try to add their own spin and it messes up. Have expectations, but don't be too lackluster. To put in new things. Do think about new things. Ready Player One, for instance, which is supposed to be this ode to video game culture, but it just came and went and no one cared. Free Guy as well. It's an okay movie, but because it's so chock and block full of things that are just mainstream pop culture, it kind of just washes over you. There's no niche to grab onto. Because it's interesting that you said ease your new viewers in, and I definitely agree with that, ease your new viewers in without being patronizing to current fans. But you can't have something that is just references all the livelong day, because then again it will just wash over you, like Free Guy. which doesn't have its own hook at all. They have a story, I get it, but it's not special in any way. It's not something that you haven't seen in anything else before. So definitely they should have tried to introduce something else. What I would have done with Free Guy is introduce players who are trolls, because that's a real video game problem. One of my favorite video game stories of all time. So I don't know if you've ever played The Division.
No, but I've heard about it.
You know
Like
where it
the
is.
and goes into lockdown, right?
Yeah, exactly. So in the original Division, there was a part of the map which was the Dark Zone. I don't know if it's the same as Division 2, but you can only go in there at a certain level, and it was very like they had a video game mechanic where you can pair up with a bunch of people, and then you can go into the Dark Zone. You can do the quest and whatever, because it's like raids. You have to do it with party members. But then you can turn on your party members and steal their loot and keep it all to yourself. So this obviously became a huge problem. So one day, the community got together on Twitch or Reddit or Discord, and a bunch of Division players got together and they formed one giant group. And with this group, they went into the Dark Zone and they just murdered every other player that was just hiding out in the Dark Zone, trying to kill people and steal their loot after a raid. And it stopped. I love that story for so many reasons. Put that in Ready Player One. Like, if you really had your hand on the pulse of video game culture, then you should have included a story like that.
It would have been an intriguing story, actually.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love that story, man. I thought it was it's one of those stories where like a community came together to like save the thing that they love. Because it was obvious, it was a problem. It was a big problem. People would just chill in the Dark Zone, wait for you to finish a quest, kill you, take your loot. A bunch of these players got together and said, no more of this. But again, if we're going to use Avatar as our example, I think it is probably the most hated adaptation out there. Definitely, if they applied some of that logic, I think it would have been a lot better. Expectations, but these people, also Avatar's such a waste. Because those are things everyone instinctively understands. We've all seen Kung Fu and know what it is. We all know what the elements is. Explaining that you can use Kung Fu to bend the elements is not a difficult thing to do. It just looked so boring. It was just so boring. And Ash was way too serious.
It's something you could have explained literally in seconds in the opening narration. You know,
like that show, exactly.
Yeah, but this is where animation wins over live action, because in live action you have to like finagle things, but in animation you can make it exactly as you were. And they convey the rules of bending by showing you the rules of bending. Punch makes rock go forward, and it is as if you are punching this rock. So it isn't like a magic spell, it's martial arts. You are punching this rock and it's going telekinetically flying away, okay? And you instinctively, nobody has to explain this rule of bending. We know this rule of bending. And you could, in your real life, see a rock and in your mind picture how you would bend it, because that is how intuitive the principle of bending is. Especially, it's one of those things where common sense doesn't seem like that common. And what I find incredibly intuitive, Shyamalan had a differing opinion on. So I don't know about that.
But that's, I think, mostly what happened with that movie was he tried to add his own artistic flair to it, and he shouldn't have done that. He should have gone with, this is a fan favorite thing. We're gonna have to make it for the fans. And it's true. I know he says he watched 2-3 seasons of it or whatever. I don't think he saw a single episode. I think some intern brought him a paper with some cliff notes on it. He was like, these are the things that you have to include. These are the characters. And he just worked straight off that. Because, I honestly don't see how. Because if you take that show and you correlate it to the light, very few things. It's almost on purpose. The things that are in the show prominent, it's almost on purpose changed, like the bending. It's almost slowed down purposefully. Aang is made more serious purposefully. Zuko is pretty much the same, I guess, but
he isn't great in the first season.
He isn't great in the first season, so that's pretty much the same. But it also, maybe they made him too horrible that the redemption arc that he eventually goes through, by the time he does for the movies, if they ever got too far, they would have made it. It's like having Joffrey turn around. It's like, how fucking why is this happening? And you have some beautiful things that you could have worked with. You told me one day, and I saw it afterwards. I completely agree. The scene where Zuko monologues to himself and figures out lightning bending is arguably some of the greatest cinema out there. It's very cool.
Wait.
In
Zuko.
Zuko, at some stage, he figures out lightning bending on his own, but and while he's doing it, he talks to himself. It's near the end of the show. Like, he has this little monologue to himself where he talks about all the things he's done, where he's come from, his uncle Ira, how he saw the world, and now he finally understands why. Because Ira's whole deal was like, that's the other thing they maybe should have done with Avatar, is just give us a solo movie as an Ira prequel. I would love this fucking shit. Because Ira was a badass, a war criminal, and then turned to this nice, humble old guy. Just do that. But I think those are very good rules, man. I do have one counterpoint for you, though. Because although you do have to ease your audience in, Dune, the latest Dune remake, for instance, did none of that. The Dune movie fully expects you to already know a lot about Dune and Dune lore, to effectively absorb that story. But because I watched it as someone, I've never seen the old movies and I haven't read the books. I've known what Dune is forever, and I know what spice is, blah blah, and I know there was an AI war and stuff like that. It's like the osmosis of pop culture, as you call it. But watching that movie for the first time, even though you're consciously aware that you don't know what they're referring to, it's still very enjoyable, and you can sort of catch up and like you can get an idea of it. So would you say that's like just that's like maybe the exception that proves the rule? Because I do still agree, like Tomb Raider, they didn't ease you into it at all. She was a young girl, and then she was at university, and then there's a plane crash, and now she has two guns, and that's what it is, and you just have to accept it. There was no like, but you have to know that Lara is also very smart, and she's very logical, and she puzzles. That's why she liked the tunes. It's his tree because he's looking for that. None of that. It's just her running through the jungle, and then two guns, and then that's it. Maybe that's putting in what's expected too much.
Okay, no. See, you show Lara Croft being smart by showing her solving a puzzle, so that's like a big part of it. And the only reason Lara's smart in the games is because you're smart in the games. So that's also just like saying it's one of the problems about transferring interactive media, where what the story is what you made it, and going to a submissive media where they're going to tell a story. So if you struggled with a puzzle for a week, you did not feel like Lara was smart at all. They did change that in the newer games because she gives you like little hints, which makes her seem like a little detective. I do like that touch about it. See, you show Lara being smart by showing her solving a puzzle, and make that puzzle intriguing for anyone. No, you don't have to make it like super complicated, but you can make it like intriguing for everyone. Like Indiana Jones having to deal with the little pressure plate. Like we instinctively like got that when he solved the puzzle like that. Now, we already know he's cunning just by that little move, and that's what I mean. That's how you show a character smart. You don't have to say it at all. And you can even, because Indiana Jones also has a lot of dopey moments. So he has like cunning moments. That's why he's an archaeologist and whatever. But he doesn't deal with people necessarily really well. And sometimes he does some really stupid stuff. That already makes your character like a little bit more great, a little bit more interesting. And I like that. We really should allow our female characters to make mistakes and learn from them. If you don't, this might not be adaptions at all. It's just talking about strong female characters, yeah. Because Lara Croft has a great potential to be a strong female character. Yes, she can be a sex icon as well, but that hasn't to do with her as much as it has to do with us.
Yes, that's just very true.
Yeah, see. So if you're going to make it a strong, and that is what the 2012 did make good, one of the first scenes is her falling through a giant spike, and it's hurting, and you can see it hurt, you can see the pain, and they make you crawl through that mud, and then you rise out of this like you could almost say crawling space from this helplessness, and the survivor is born. They really deliver on what they meant in that story, and that's a good story. That's filled with intrigue and it's filled with emotions. It's a lot better than the first Tomb Raider story, which is, she kicks ass, and that's what she does. The first,
Does it in leather?
yeah, man. Oh, shorts, but yeah. But in boots. The first Tomb Raider starts with her feet on the desk, as if she owns the place, and this fucking cowboy throwing a magazine with her. She caught and killed Bigfoot, right? And he's like, "What's a guy have to do to get that kind of attention?" And she replies with, "Keep talking like that, and you'll find out." That's how the conversation, went back then. That's not deep characters, okay? That is some.
No, these people don't think about things.
Yeah, and then she gets paid by a company, and yeah, that's it. It is something her dad. I think the dad thing is actually earlier than I thought. I might have been wrong about that earlier, because I do think that initial scene, the bad guy. Well, we learn it's the bad guy. If you haven't seen this 1996 game and its story, I'm sorry for the spoilers, but the bad guy is the person that hires Lara at the start of the game, and that is what it is about. She's gonna pay this woman, and then halfway through, you learn that she's the bad guy, and she's gonna use this MacGuffin, this 3-piece MacGuffin, gonna unite it and resurrect Atlantis and take over the world. It's a fucking serious ride. And then you fight her because you live in the world and you don't want it to be taken over by a crazy Atlantean.
No, that's not. There's not.
Yeah, but it's basic motivations, right?
It's video game motivation.
Yeah, video game. Yeah, but compare that to the see, that's the thing. Compare that to the remake. We've already had conversations about Lara Croft, and now we've made a game that attracted a lot of attention. Old-time fans, new fans, guys, girls, the peeps in between, the people at the back, the people at the front. And it got wide acclaim for what it did. It delivered a good game, a fun game, an intriguing story, a great character to actually play as. And I would say a strong female character, a character that does have emotions and can deal with them, and does suffer but rise above it. Makes mistakes but learns from it. A human, as it were. If the new adaptions, whoever's in charge of it, if they can think about things in a little bit of an indie way, I think things will go a lot better. As Dan said, try to AAA cookie cutter it. Doing a multi-project like that, you're gonna need some weirdos on your team to make it work.
You're also gonna need some outright wacky ideas. There's definitely gonna have to be some fun and camp and out there things, most definitely. Otherwise, you can't be serious all the way through. If you're serious all the way through, we'll suffer from what I call Batman fatigue. Because Batman's a great character, but I'm a little bit tired of how fucking brooding he always has to be. Give me a little bit more. That's why Iron Man is so much fun, and you can go back and watch Iron Man over and over again, because it's, he also deals with PTSD and drinking problems and what, but it's, he does at least crack a joke every now and again. Yeah. Just make it a little bit more helpful. Yeah, just a little bit more, because we're not all sad and depressed the whole time. We do have highs and lows. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to take your 4 rules of adaptation and we're going to apply it to the new movies coming out this year. So we're definitely going to do it for Dungeons & Dragons. We'll talk about if we think they were fans, what they took, what they didn't take, where they eased the expectation, where they delivered on expectation, and where they maybe threw a curveball. And then we'll also check in world building, and we'll also take a quick gander at the moral of whatever narrative they're trying to tell, and if they I think that's very cool. I think you set out some good rules. I think those are rules we all can digest and live by
let me know in the comments if you agree. If you have your own rules that you want to add to our list, let us know.
Yeah, we would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, everybody. Merlin, always a pleasure. I'll see you next week.